We're back again with another bloody painting. Yes, bloody. And what's better than seeing the famous Frida Kahlo on a canvas? That's right, two Fridas on a canvas. And these Fridas got a lot on their mind. And in their hearts? Today, we're stepping into the fascinating world of Frida's art and delving into the complexities of her famous painting, The Two Fridas. This captivating masterpiece showcases the artist's raw emotions and struggles with heartbreak, self-discovery, gender identity, and above all, sorrow. With its intricate symbolism and profound meanings, The Two Fridas is a painting that'll leave you mesmerized and longing for more. Join us as we take a closer look at the multiple facets of this iconic art piece. Before we dive into the painting's details, let's go back in time to understand the deeper meaning and inspiration behind the masterpiece. The 1930s were definitely one of the more turbulent years of Frida's life. Frida and her good old ex-husband Diego traveled throughout the United States to support his art career. During their travels, Frida continued to paint as she had already begun her own artistic career. When they returned to Mexico and settled in San Angel in 1933, their relationship became strained and distant, and both individuals engaged in extramarital affairs. Notably, Diego even had an affair with Frida's sister, Frida Kahlo. And if that wasn't bad enough, Frida experienced significant health problems that undoubtedly added to her suffering. When Diego wanted a divorce, it marked a turning point in Frida's art career as she began creating larger paintings and aimed to support herself through her own artwork. Then this happened. She painted The Two Fridas in 1939, the same year when she and her husband, Diego Rivera, who was a famous and prolific Mexican artist, officially divorced. Very sad, right? Well, it would be if they didn't get remarried that same year again. The Two Fridas, also known as Las Dos Fridas, was one of Frida's most substantial paintings, and it portrays her inner emotional landscape through two depictions of herself. Now, Frida was a multifaceted woman with a strong political sense, which was evident from a young age. Growing up during the Mexican Revolution, she was always very interested in politics. She joined the Mexican Communist Party in 1927 and became a member of the socialist group known as the Fourth International later in 1936. Frida and Diego also housed Leon Trotsky, a Ukrainian politician and revolutionary leader, and his wife Natalia Sedova from 1937 to 1939. During Trotsky's stay, he and Frida had an affair, which was the reason that led him and his wife to move out. Frida had a deep connection to her Mexican heritage and has always expressed her national pride through her artwork. We can see that in several of her paintings where she references the Tehuantepec culture known as Tehuana through her attire. Interestingly, this style of dress she wore was also favored by Diego. Frida's connection to her Mexican heritage went beyond fashion and art as she was actively involved in the Mexicanidad movement. This post-revolutionary movement sought to embrace Mexican ancestry and its rich traditions through art. This was often described as a form of romantic nationalism. Frida frequently incorporated symbols from Aztec mythology and other Mexican cultural motifs in her artwork, often as a way to express her national pride. These traditional images can be seen in numerous examples of her paintings. For instance, in her painting, My Dress Hangs There, which she painted previously in 1933. Similarly, her self-portrait on the borderline between Mexico and the United States shows her standing in a traditional Victorian dress while holding a Mexican flag, surrounded by Aztec architecture, traditional sculptures, and what appears to be fertility statuettes. Frida was never afraid to show herself in all her glitz and gore, often utilizing motifs related to human anatomy, surgery, and blood. This was due to her interest in science, more so medicine, which she pursued to study after school until a severe vehicular accident changed the course of her life. When Frida was 18 years old, she was involved in a crash between a bus and a car. She suffered numerous fatal injuries that left her with lifelong, chronic, and painful consequences. The tragedy of this event propelled her even further into her art career, and it became one of many subjects of her paintings. One example is a later painting, The Broken Column, painted in 1944. Apart from exploring her Mexican heritage and national pride, Frida also challenged sexual, gender, and racial stereotypes in her art. She questioned her own identity as a Mexican woman living in a world of conflicting cultural identities. A prime example of this is her painting Self-Portrait with Cropped Hair, where she blurs the lines between masculine and feminine identities. In this painting, Frida portrays herself wearing a suit with short hair, resembling her husband Rivera. This work represents one of the first defiances of traditional gender roles and expectations. Now, let's take a closer look into the two Fridas. In this painting, we see two women seated on what appears to be a wicker bench, staring directly at us, the viewers, in an ambivalent and almost empty gaze. However, on closer inspection, we may notice that the two women are both Frida. Both Fridas are holding each other's hands. The Frida to our left has her left hand over the right hand of the Frida to our right. Also, we can observe that both figures have exposed hearts that are connected to each other through a red vein. This vein also branches off into other veins that connect to the various objects held by the two Fridas in their laps. The Frida on the left is depicted wearing a full-length white dress, which resembles a Victorian costume. Some sources suggest that this dress could be a wedding dress, similar to the one worn by Frida's mother in her painting, My Grandparents, My Parents, and I. Additionally, the Frida on the left holds a pair of surgical scissors, while the Frida on the right holds a miniature oval portrait. The full-length white dress adorns the Frida to the left, with lace and frills covering her whole body and neck, leaving only her forearms and heart exposed. The tear in the dress exposes the ventricles of her heart even further, and in her right hand, she holds a pair of surgical scissors. These scissors were likely used to cut the vein that now clamps it, judging by the blood on the dress. The vein is thoroughly, directly connected to the other Frida. The previously mentioned drips of blood that are staining Frida's white dress in two areas, almost matching the pattern along the bottom of her dress, made up of what appears to be red flowers, seemingly alluding to the beauty and fairness implied by the white dress being lost by the smearing of blood on it. If we examine to the Frida to our right, she's wearing a traditional Tehuana costume consisting of a blue short-sleeve blouse with yellow patterned lines and a long brown-green skirt with white lace trim at the bottom. In contrast to the other Frida, more of her arms and neck are visible, and her heart is depicted without any incisions, portraying a healthier appearance. Additionally, her heart appears superimposed on top of her blouse, which is also intact and not torn like the other Frida's dress. In her left hand, the Frida to our right is a small oval portrait between her thumb and forefinger, which is connected to a vein that connects to her heart. If we look at the portrait, we will notice that Frida depicted an image of Diego Rivera when he was a child. If we look at the setting of the two Fridas painting, around 2/3 of the background consists of a darkened cloud-filled sky, as if a storm is approaching. The lower third of the background is the ground or floor. It appears to be brown, which suggests that it possibly could be a grounded surface. When we examine the perspective and scale employed in the two Fridas, it becomes apparent that the painting portrays a basic setting that lacks significant three-dimensionality. The background seems to be in close proximity to the foreground subject matter. Nevertheless, there are subtle shading details in areas such as the point where the sky and the ground meet that create the impression of depth and three-dimensionality. Now, the meaning behind this painting is much more complex. There's a lot that can be said about the two Fridas by Frida. It's the key to the inner recesses of Frida's heart and heritage. The two Fridas' meaning could possibly be allocated to 4 different explanations that the artist incorporated in her painting. Namely, and most importantly, the hurt and sadness from her divorce from her ex-husband, Diego Rivera. There are 3 additional possible interpretations of the two Fridas. Firstly, it could symbolize the chronic pain that Frida suffered from since a near-fatal accident in her youth. Secondly, it may represent the artist's mixed heritage, which could have created a divide within her identity as a woman. Lastly, some sources suggest that Frida had an imaginary friend during her childhood, which may be referenced in this painting. In an earlier painting of hers, called Frida and Diego Rivera, Frida's and Diego's hands barely touch, possibly alluding to the instability of their marriage due to Diego's affairs. Similarly, the two Fridas hint at multiple meanings beyond just a happy marriage. Frida's masterwork painting always take on a deeper significance. This act symbolizes Frida bridging the gap between her identity as a woman in a European world and a woman in a Mexican world, becoming an emblem of courage and bravery in a seemingly dualistic world. What do you think? Did you expect the story behind this painting? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.